early warning signs for dementia could be different for every person.
At first, it was like my dad was having some, like seeing things. So it was like, what do you mean you're seeing things? What's happening?
My husband had dementia, Alzheimer's, and I didn't know anybody or seen anyone with this kind of illness.
I never come across anyone that had dementia. I didn't really know what that was.
My husband had a head injury, and I guess last spring he started telling me that he was forgetting things. His memory was kind of going. I didn't take too much into account of it. I was just like, oh yeah, you know, not really worried about it.
She went to see the doctor, and they noticed that she was forgetful. She was starting to forget. But I didn't really see that at first because I thought nothing of it. I thought maybe she was just forgetting for no reason, you know.
I could hear myself saying, well, don't you remember? And then I had to realize that that was a statement that was hard for him because he didn't remember.
And I felt kind of bad. A lot of guilt hit me because, you know, you think, oh, I should have seen this coming. You know, he was giving me the, saying he was forgetting. I was seeing signs, but it just kind of just hit me then when he forgot who I was.
When dementia came, it came suddenly, and his, it was shocking to us because we always thought that, you know, because he was so, you know, he was brilliant.
A lot of thoughts came through my head, you know what dementia is, you know, it comes very quietly sometimes, I guess, you know, and sometimes it's hard to spot right away, you know, but in time, you know, you start to notice more things happening.
So we would go to the bingo, and he would play lots of strips, but after a while he was starting only play 2 strips, and then he just 1 strip, and I was getting frustrated, and I was telling, you missed this number, you missed this number.
My brother, when I go visit him at his house, he doesn't remember what day it is, like Sunday, Monday, and the date and the month. I have to tell him every five minutes. I repeat myself.
Because I didn't know what was happening. Nobody at first seemed to know what was going on with him. See, I didn't know all these were signs of dementia.
Memory loss has been seen as part of the aging process. So it gets missed, I think. And then from there goes, you know, families try to fix those situations themselves. And often the progression is slow, and so it's acceptable. And then by the time I see them, it's, you know, the dementia has increased, they haven't got the supports in place, they haven't had those discussions with their physicians or their caregivers. So when I see them, I'm, you know, is usually in hospitals, occasionally in the home, and there's a problem.
I have an aunt. Watching the progress and how quickly it happened. because there was nobody there to advocate for her. There was nobody there to help her to navigate her through a system of care. And when I saw it happen to her, I was just so stunned.
At one time, you know, it was you dealt with your future through words, and decisions were made by the oldest or the youngest, depending on whatnot. But nowadays, especially because of the Western approach to care, you know, things have to be in writing. You have to have your power of attorneys and those kind of things set in place.
Not everybody's going to be on the same page at the same time. I found that in my own family, when we even had decisions at the hospital to make, everybody was on a different page. And even though we came together as a family, I wish there was somebody there to kind of guide us through the processes of decision makings, because there was a lot of feeling and emotion wrapped up into all of that. If I could just take the feeling and emotion and put it on the side and then deal, you know, logistically with that stuff, but it isn't that way when you're with family and community.
You know, if your loved one with dementia ends up in hospital or nursing home, power of attorney needs to be done so one person is speaking for that person. Otherwise, you know, all of the children have to agree on care, and it can be really stressful on the family and the caregivers as well. And writing those wishes down, you know, in the event that, you know, my dementia increases or becomes worse and I end up in a nursing home, what are your wishes? Making sure all those things are in place.
It can be a very lonely place to be, especially when you don't have, you know, if you don't have a large family and siblings or, you know, people close by to help out.
So I think not having his family there to help was the hardest part, because, you know, his long-term memory was okay, but it was his short-term memory that was kind of, you know, gone.
We need to have support. We need people, we need our families to help us, and our friends. They become important in our life, what is happening.
Caregivers spend so much time like focusing on their loved one, family member who has dementia, and oftentimes because of that focus on that person, they don't spend that much time focusing on themselves.
The caregiver burnout is really, really high because people still need to work. They still need to care for their families, you know, hold down a job, bring in the income. Just the lack of respite relief, huge. Like, I can think of some clients that don't get any respite relief at all, nothing.
My mom would call me up at strange hours, you know, 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, and I have to go visit my dad. And I'd have to bring him down, you know, just calm him down again, and, you know, it's okay, Dad. It's okay.
What I've learned over the last 2 days coming here today is, for myself, is to not be afraid to talk to people. To talk to people and to ask people for help, to have that support in place as a caregiver, because, you know, when it's just her and I in the house, and when things start to get tense, there's no good place to go from that.
At one time, when people as families stayed together in the home, and different generations, but nowadays people are working families, and you know, often the grandparents are caregivers, so things are getting missed.
It's really important to involve family because, especially when we look at dementia or Alzheimer's, because sometimes if the family have more insight into what's going on, right? They're also the people who are the ones that are able to act out some of the things that need to be done to support that person at home, but they need that support as well. And I think that that is something that we really need to improve on, is supporting caregivers. There's a gap for sure.
As a caregiver, I couldn't do everything. I had to let go and let other people do the work too. You know, it's the nursing staff is a great staff. You know, the wellness center did everything they possibly could, because in that short time, you know, before I put him in the nursing home, and you know, it's I knew I had to let him go now, and let, like I say, let the people do what they have to do.
There's a lot of really good services out there, and if they don't know it, then they can't connect. So making sure clients and families, you know, are aware of everything that's out there for them, whether it be in their community or a community close by. And again, it's about, you know, educating the partners to make sure they're also offering these services to clients.
I got a lot of support from my community too. PSW would come in, and I'd get respite in the evening to go out.
We do have like access to health access care centers, so it's a matter of connecting the people to the service.
For anybody that's in and as long as the elder was open to it, if there was just more PSW support available that could provide, you know, assisted living hours essentially, or more respite and weekend relief for family members.
So yeah, so having people to talk to, very important, because it's it can be very isolating, it can be a very lonely place to be.
There should be a place for these clients to go to where they can listen to music and do the arts and you know, visit privately with family and have little gatherings.
We know, like, if somebody falls into depression or has social isolation or a lack of stimulation, you're going to see the dementia and the cognitive decline happen a lot quicker than you would otherwise, right?
You'll see some that never had anybody go in and see them, and you didn't know whether to talk to them or not. At first, you'd see them very active, walking around, and next thing you know, they're really regressing.
But the biggest thing that I see is seniors being isolated, and then that depression setting in, sometimes losing their sense of purpose and their sense of value.
I took him for rides and take him wherever. Sometimes he wouldn't go nowhere. He just wanted to stay home. And I said, you got to get out of the house. Let's go. Let's go see this. Let's go see your brother or your daughter or son. Let's go visit.
I think that's one of the things that we miss now, is that visiting, and to visit each other and keep our memories alive and to keep our brain working.
For the clients who do go to the nursing home, to make sure that they're not going to the nursing home and the doors are closed and they're forgotten. You know, keeping them part of the community, bringing them out to all the activities.
So giving them those little things, bringing them things that they can relate, and sharing their experiences like that was, was one of the things that helped them to entertain and visit and, being able to share.
I think we also have to change the lens to focusing on what the abilities still are and what the things are that they may be engaged with before, whether it was beading, like, can we still incorporate that? Maybe that person has a vision problem or they have difficulty with arthritis in their hands. Can we look at adapting different ways so that they can still engage in that and so that they feel a sense of purpose?
We can't go canoeing anymore, but we could still go fishing. You know, I still try to get them to do things with me, and we sing. So just a couple of days ago, I started playing my guitar with him and getting him to sing with me, which I think helps. I've gotten puzzles for him just to do some brain exercises.
A couple of our elders have raised garden beds now, and they really enjoy that, and their grandkids come over. And both of the people that I'm just thinking of that recently got them, and their grandkids come over and are helping them with planting and watering, and it's something that they're doing together, and it's engaging a lot of discussion around that, right? And then we're looking at, growing healthy food, and what does that look like?
Crossword puzzles, word search puzzles, coloring, art therapy. I think using your hands a lot and your eyes, and just keep going. I know we did a lot of outdoor activities too, like going out on the land. Sometimes we would go on the beach and pick rocks and stuff like that. And just being out in nature, I find that was a grounding experience for people. Just to be out in nature.
The cultural sensitivity part of healthcare is lacking. There's a big gap there.
A lot of the elders that I work with have a lot of spiritual beliefs that are a huge part of their well-being, and that could be traditional or non-traditional. There's a lot of individuals that have more of a religious background as well. Catholic is really common.
Getting to know the celebrations, the sacred teachings, what's important to the individual. Were they traditional? Are they still traditional? When you're able to make that connection as well with the culture and the language, the relationship building is just that much better as well.
When the family, has exhausted all their avenues, we are fortunate to have respite care and assisted living to help support the client and family in their home. But sometimes that's not enough as well. When the client's family is just not able to cope any longer and their risks have increased, then we have to have that talk about nursing home, and it's tough. It's tough for these families.
So the people that came in were very, very helpful in their profession, and helping him, to make that decision when that came, where we have to put him in a home, and I was glad it was in Wikwemikong, because I wanted him to hear his own language and be where the people can understand him, and I think we made the right decision in that area.
In the hospitals or the nursing home, as soon as you speak that language, just hearing that, it just seems to, revive them.
And sometimes Jen, when she has a difficult time word finding, most of the time we have somebody around who's able to speak Ojibwe, so getting back to that mother tongue, like she can just, talk up a storm, but in the English language, she's having more and more difficulty trying to find those words to identify objects or to get her message across.
When we're still able to keep the language going, use your first language as often as possible, because often you'll find when clients with dementia will revert back to their original language. So making sure that the family is, also practicing and understanding and knowing their language so they can communicate with their loved one, who will, likely revert back to their primary language. Very important.
And my brother never lost his language. And he speaks good language too, eh? That's why he always phones me, because we talk in our language.
Just hearing it. Even me, when I was working off reserve, just seeing another Anishinaabe out there. Oh, howdy, bonjour. It just, there's a special camaraderie that we have as Anishinaabeg.
There aren't really elder community centers in the other communities, whereas in the First Nation communities there are, which I think is really, really important to have that available for that social piece, getting the elders involved in different activities and programming engaging them in meaningful activities that, keep them connected to other individuals.
My dad, he was pretty much adamant that the way he lived his life is part of the reason why he had the memory problems. So lack of exercising, the diet he had many years of drinking and abusing, different things. And he said, I never properly rested. I always thought, I had to work, which he was always working. He worked shift work. He says, I never really properly took care of my mind or my body or my spirit. And now I'm telling you, that's what you need to do. You need to be able to look at all that spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and physically, because those first three affect the physical. We look at the physical first, but we're not taking in the spiritual side, and the mental and emotional side. Like those parts are what's driving the physical part of us.
To eat right and to be around people, to be sociable, and help others and be a part of this community, because that's what we are. We are in a part of this community, and to be supportive of others that are going through the same thing. We cannot do these things alone.
I just left a client's house today who said, it just feels good to be heard and listened to, versus, maybe someone coming in. It's important to take my blood pressure and to monitor and provide me education about my diabetes, but it's really important for me just to feel like a person and be able to talk about how I'm managing and things that are important to me, and to feel heard and validated, right? So that's a really common thread, I feel like.
And I think that's one of the things that a lot of people, when they regress somewhere in either, sick, when they're sick, is because you don't take the time for each other. So when you take that time, you're building up their spirit, the little spirit that's in your body. You want to make that little spirit strong and to be able to nourish that little spirit, because that spirit is nourishing you.
Because when you have dementia, you no longer understand words, you understand love. You understand body language. And so you always have to be mindful when you're with someone who has dementia, that you are in a frame of mind that you are showing love.
When it came to dementia, we did everything as a family, and this is part of what you see as that love, that patience, and that dignity.
And the more information about dementia comes out with this research, it'll help. Like from here on, now that we know what we're up against, you will have someone in your family that will have dementia. So let's be prepared.